Olá a todos, bem-vindo ao meu canal. Neste vídeo um, gosto de partilhar, partilhar com vocês a minha segunda, não, segundo aniversário da minha aprendizagem de português, do meu aprendizagem de português. Por isso vou falar em inglês. And yes, so this is my 2-year Portuguese learning video, and I found it significant that in the last week I realized something about my level in Portuguese that is what so it is significant because I feel that it's different from I feel that my level has improved significantly is what I'm trying to say. So I will start with when I started. So I started learning Portuguese in June of 2021, on the 18th of June 2021. And so how I started. So I would consider this my phase 1. And the phases that I'm going to be talking about is not is only based on the things that I was doing, the things that I did, the things that I did at that time or for that time frame. So I would consider my first phase, which is my first 600 hours that I accomplished in 5.5 or almost 6 months, because at that time Portuguese was the only language that I was studying. So I spent all my language learning hours of the day. So for example, I had three hours dedicated to learning languages, and all the full 3 to 4 hours was dedicated to Portuguese. So I wrote down stuff that from that time that I was doing and how it helped me get to the next level. So the first 600 hours, I focused on vocabulary and words. And because I was focusing on words itself, like acquiring like what individual words or phrases mean, I did not bother too much with accents, which is why I watched on Netflix. The majority of the shows are in Brazilian Portuguese. They're Brazilian shows, so I watched movies in Brazilian Portuguese I watched Brazilian movies and with English subtitles. Looking back, I think it could have been better if I watched European Portuguese shows, but it wasn't available. So that's what I did. Picked up words. I remember the first phrase that actually clicked for me. I was watching a movie, a crime movie, and this girl said, "Boa sorte," and the only subtitle says "good luck." So I said, "Oh, okay." And that happened to me recently as well when I was watching Parent Trap, the Lindsay Lohan, Natasha Richardson Parent Trap in French, and the same phrase popped out, "Bon chance," and it was the only phrase as subtitles that said, then that I realized, okay, that also meant good luck. So why is it always good luck the first? And then I was making gold lists, because at the time I did not know about Link yet, and other ways to immerse myself in the language. So like in hindsight, I should have focused on reading more, but again, that was before I discovered Steve Kaufman, his methods, Stephen Krashen, his methods. So the first thing that I saw was, I think, Lydia Makova, also a polyglot, and she advertised, or she did make gold lists. But I think right now, like, even in Russian and in French, I didn't even, like, for French specifically, I did not start any gold list anymore. I focused on other methods, like reading and listening to native content at a slowed pace, looking for more comprehensible input. Oh, that's also one thing. European Portuguese, they does not have a lot of comprehensible input on, online. And French and Russian has a lot, which is also why my start with European Portuguese is kind of different. So anyway, going back, gold lists, and then I watched a lot of Portuguese with Leo. By the way, all the resources that I'm mentioning, I will be posting in the comments down below, if the description box would not allow. So just look for it, like comments or in the description box. So Portuguese with Leo, Mia Esmer's Academy. I got a course, I think from A1 to B1. I didn't really use it a lot because I found the pace too slow. But in the beginning, if you're a person who does not have a lot of time to look for native content, or if you don't have a subscription to Link, I think, and you don't mind learning at a slower pace, I kind of fast-tracked my lower beginner to upper beginner process, because I really wanted to hit 600 hours before, and have those 600 hours give me a lot of information. So her program, her course was a bit slow, and I understand that. I think it would be something that other people would it would be better for some people, but in my experience, it was kind of slow, and I was getting the same stuff from tutors on italki. But once in a while, I still look at the videos, see anything that if I could learn, or if I don't want to read a book. So you could check that out, Mia Esmeris. And then these are YouTubers: Portuguese with Leo, Mia Esmeris, Portuguese with Carla, and then Portuguese with Maria. So Portuguese with Maria so Portuguese with Leo has longer videos, 10 minutes, and then it's all in Portuguese. So it is a channel that is more for intermediate learners. So I would think A2 learners. But if you're a beginner like me at that time, I still use Portuguese with Leo for my Portuguese learning. Although I was watching it probably more than 10, 20 times, and then just listening to it again and again. And then each time I listened, something, a word would, the metaphor would be slowly, the clouds were clearing out from the sky, and one by one, these vague words became clearer. And at the same time, I also had I started to use Link as well. Link is a subscription-based application, browser-based, and also device, like gadget-based, cell phone, iPad. It works there as well. I started with the mini stories, and I also, okay, the big thing in this phase was I did a lot of passive listening. I just listened, trying to be familiar with the sound of the language. So aside from writing gold lists, because that was one of the main things that I did to absorb vocabulary, so it was absorbing vocabulary and a lot of passive listening. So for example, O Principezinho, it's available in European Portuguese as an audiobook on YouTube. So I listened to that while I was lifting weights or riding the bike, and I just listened to it again and again and again. And so I kind of, so basically it was for me to be acquainted, or to once again get used to the sounds of European Portuguese. And then because later on I found out that the content would come out. It's kind of confusing if like laying out the timeline. So first I did not have the content, so I listened to both Brazilian Portuguese and European Portuguese, and then when I found like these YouTube videos, I started to focus on European Portuguese. But since I was still new to the language, and if I limited myself to getting vocabulary from videos and shows in only European Portuguese, I would have limited myself when it came to being able to acquire more vocabulary, because Brazilian content is really a huge part of any database, whether it's YouTube or Netflix, because it is a bigger country, and that makes sense. And then I also had italki classes with several tutors, but it only ranged from half an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. 45 minutes. Half an hour to 45 minutes, because there is basically, most of the time, there's nothing that I don't know how to say things, because I was still new to the language. So it's all now say, como se diz, and a lot of English in between, because I don't know what to say. So I found that 30 minutes was a lot. It was like overwhelming at sometimes, and I didn't want to I think at that point 30 minutes and 45 minutes was even long, because by that time, like after probably 35 minutes, it's like I don't know what to say, and it's just a lot of hand holding and spoon feeding at that point, because once again, there's a lot of vocabulary that I didn't know. So my first 600 hours was basically to focus on being getting used to European Portuguese, but majority was about acquiring as much vocabulary as I can. Thus, the gold lists, reading reading subtitles in the movies, and also learning common or introductory speech like "Hola, tudo bem? Como estás? De onde és?" "Qual é o seu trabalho?" Stuff like that. Like stuff that you would ask a person if once you meet them the first time. So, and then at the end of the first phase, I gave myself the goal of making a video with my friend speaking in Portuguese. Now, she studied in Brazil, Sao Paulo, for several years in high school, so she can speak fairly to a conversational level of Brazilian Portuguese. So at the end of 600 hours, which I accomplished in, I think, around less than 6 months, because I was really into acquiring this language, and I made that video. So I'm going to link the video somewhere and at the end of this video, and I'm going to pause the video here because it has been a long video, and I'm going to just release it on consecutive days probably. So that was it for my first phase in in Portuguese, European Portuguese, or acquisition of the Portuguese language. So I'm going to post my first video ever that I made in Portuguese and somewhere, and then the video that I made with my friend after 600 hours of Portuguese. So see you in the next video.